Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Phoblographers Inside the Photographer's Mind. I'm your host Dan Gin, and this week I'm joined by our Editor-in-Chief Chris Gampat. We're going to call this one Christmas with Gampat. It's got a nice little ring to it and we're feeling a little bit festive as we get closer to the holidays. We've got plenty to talk about on this week's episode. We're going to be looking at Tamron's suspected 3 new lenses for Fujifilm's X-mount cameras. We're going to be looking at some Leica gear, some Canon gear, and we're also going to be talking about what this year's been like for the Phoblographer throughout 2021. Guys, if you are enjoying the podcast, then please, if you're listening on YouTube, Google, Spotify or Apple, hit a subscribe, share it with your photography friends, hit a like, leave a comment, let us know what you think. We really do appreciate your support. Right, let's get into this conversation with Chris. Chris Gampat, you're back again.
How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. Last time you serenaded me with a beautiful song, but it seems I don't have the pleasure of having that this time, which is fine. You know, I'm not going to take it offensively. I'm not going to get hurt about it.
That's fine. It's not like I care about your emotions anyway. It's nah, for real, man. It's just I don't know. Like these days, I'm just tired. Like I woke up and like I don't know if it's because like I'm going to bed like maybe an hour later or so. But this morning I was just like, man, I want another hour in bed, and then like I didn't get out of bed until like 7:45. I'm usually a guy that's like up and about at like 6, but I don't know. Like I haven't given myself enough sleep recently. I've just been so busy.
Are you in the holiday spirit?
That's why I'm not serenading you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying. Are you in the holiday mood yet? Are you in the mood for the holidays?
I'm never in the holiday mood, quite honestly. I'm just like, oh, okay. These people are out of New York, and I can go to bars and restaurants and not have to fight for attention.
So true.
And that to me is kind of the holiday mood.
But when I used to live in London, and when it came to kind of Christmas time and a New Year, you realized how many people actually didn't live in the city because it was like a ghost town. I mean, you could go on the tube, what you would call the subway, and you could just you'd be the only person on there. It's kind of a fun time to photograph as well because people aren't used to seeing places like London, New York, like empty, apart from when the pandemic happened, obviously. But you know, it's a good time to get out there and just do a different perspective of a city that's usually crazy, really.
Yeah, no, and I usually do try to do that sometimes. Usually I'd be the guy like hosting like 20 people or something like that at my apartment, but 2020 and the pandemic killed that.
Yeah.
And right now Omicron's coming back and it's real despite when some people may say. But yeah, man, it's just like right now I'm just gonna chill. Not gonna do anything. Maybe call a couple people.
Are you able to get out and do anything with your cameras?
Yeah. Pretty easily, and actually that's what I plan to do because I think Christmas is on a Saturday this year, and then New Year's on a Saturday. Yeah, Christmas is on a Saturday this year, so like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I'm just gonna like mostly chill, go out, hang out, and that's mostly what I'll be doing like the week after. Like I'm gonna be writing as well too, but like yeah, like I'm not even going to yoga or Pilates because like the studio's closed, so I'm just like, all right, I'll just go out and photo walk and I'll have fun and create, like the stuff that I love to do that I don't always get time to.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing as well. We've got quite a few things to go through. I was going to open up with because you tested the Tamron 18-300. Have I got that right? I
tested the Fuji version.
The Fuji
Hillary
version.
Tested the Sony version.
Oh, they're bringing out so many versions, aren't they? Eh? Dotting themselves around amongst all the manufacturers.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, they're mostly focusing on mirrorless right now, so like that would be Sony. But they want to diversify a bit, so Fuji just makes sense.
So, according to FujiRumors.com, I don't know if anybody uses that site, but it's they get a lot of things right. According to FujiRumors.com, the headline is, while Sigma sleeps, seems to be an attack at Sigma. I don't know what the problem is there, but Tamron confirms 3 more Fujifilm X-mount lenses. There's going to be a 11mm to 20mm, a 17 to 70, and they're teasing the last one. Okay, all right, they've clickbaited this. They've clickbaited it. Bad Fuji rumors.
Right.
But what do you think about that? Okay, so for the first two, an 11. Let's have a look. 11 to 20mm and a 17 to 70. Both apparently going to be f2.8.
That actually lines up. I have the 17 to 70mm in right now because doing some sponsored content for Tamron with it.
Okay.
But it's an APS-C lens, and it would make a lot of sense to actually bring that over. It's basically like a 24 to 120mm almost, with constant f2.8 aperture. You bring that to Fujifilm, and people will go crazy for it, just because you have all that range and you're at one aperture. So why not? The other one also does make sense. Otherwise, I'm not sure what they would bring out. I would hope that they would bring out a prime, but that doesn't really seem a whole lot likely because Tamron hasn't really done a whole lot of primes. They've done them for full frame. They haven't done them for APS-C. So it would probably be some other zoom lens of some sort, and I'm not sure what that would be.
Just for those that may not know, and probably myself included. So for Tamron to be able to make these lenses, does Fujifilm have to authorize them?
Yes. Well, sort of, yes. So Tamron makes these lenses, and then they say that, hey, we want to do it with Sony. And the way that the Japanese companies work is they're like, hey, we want to work with you in an official capacity. So we want to work with you with like autofocus algorithms and like exposure and all that kind of stuff. And it can be really challenging at times. But it works really well between Tamron and Sony because Sony owns part of Tamron. And overall, I mean, Tamron also makes a whole lot of lenses, not just for them, but also like one of the dirty secrets is they do like a whole lot of stuff for other manufacturers. And by that, I usually mean like they create like the glass. There's like 3 or 4 companies that make all the glass. And yes, to get back to what you're saying, that would mean that yes, the Fuji does have to have like a relationship with them, and they do. Tamron's confirmed this themselves. So yeah, and then they just have to say, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure out like what lenses we're going to, provide to Fujifilm mounts.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess Fujifilm is saying, and I'm sure they'll have some kind of deal in the back, but Fuji's saying compete with us. So what if Tamron were like, hey, let's bring out a portrait lens for Fuji X mount? Like, does Fuji have the power to say, no, we're not letting you do that. You have to go do something else? That
I'm not sure about. But from what I've been seeing, ever since the Tamron-Sony relationship started to get very, very close, Tamron's really trying to create lenses that other brands don't really have. Okay. Like, for Sony, for example, this is 35mm f2.8. Sony has one. It's like a small pancake one. Tamron's is a little bigger, but it's fully weather sealed. And then they have a 20mm f2.8 and a 24mm f2.8. Those are lenses Sony doesn't make at all. And then they have a 28 to 75 f2.8 that, I almost gave an editor's choice to, but I actually gave their 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8 the editor's choice award just because it's such an innovative lens. Sony has nothing like that. Okay. No other brand has anything really like that. So what they're trying to do, from what we've seen over the past couple of years, is they're trying to create lenses that other manufacturers don't necessarily have. And that's within varying degrees. Like the 150 to 500 that they have, other brands will make something like that. Yeah, it really depends, man.
See, it's interesting. I wonder what your take is on this, because I'm the kind of person, I don't like things off-brand. You know, if I've got a Sony body or a Fuji body, I've got a Fuji body, but you know, I want to keep it consistent. I want Fuji lenses, Sony lenses. Like, do you think, and especially with like Fujifilm shooters, like one of the things that brings them to the systems is the craftsmanship, you know, the manual aperture ring, which I believe Tamron doesn't have for their X mount lenses. Do you think it's going to be a hard sell for Tamron to get kind of hardcore Fuji fans to not choose a Fuji lens and go with them?
With some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Rokinon and Samyang, for example, have made this 50mm f1.2 for X mount for a while, and people were sort of scoffing at it. And then when we did our review on it, people were like, "Oh, this is kind of better than the 56 1.2." So they bought a whole bunch of them because they saw our review and they saw, you know, like, we've been doing this for years. We're very transparent. So they were like, okay, fine, I think I'm going to go with this. And then Villatrox has made a couple of lenses for Fujifilm as well, too. Zeiss has also made a couple lenses for Fujifilm. They're all very good. There is something to be said, though, for using first-party manufacturer gear. Usually it will work the best, but that really varies per manufacturer. It depends on the relationship. Like, for example, with Canon, the Canon RF series, I'm shooting right now on a Canon EOS R5, right? And I have a 24-105 on there. But in my bag behind me, and my office is a mess because it's the season, there is a Samyang 85mm f1.4. And someone might want that because it's more affordable. They get an f1.4 aperture. There's a little bit of weather sealing. Whereas the more affordable Canon options don't have weather sealing at all. You have to spend, I think the 85-1.2 is like $2,000 plus to get it, versus the Samyang 85, a couple $100. I'd say probably no more than $800. I don't know off the top of my head, but the cost savings are there, right? And with Tamron to Fuji, one, they're doing something that Fujifilm doesn't do, right? An 18-300mm lens for Fujifilm does not exist. Some brands might say, like, or some folks have said in our reviews, like, oh, well, I wouldn't use this for birding because Fuji has a 70-300, and it's like, okay, that's fine, but, like, you can do birding and you can do a lot more with this one lens. You can do everything, and if you're a good enough photographer, you really, truly can do anything with it. And then again, there are other things that the brand will do that Fujifilm doesn't necessarily do. Fujifilm's needed the help for years, honestly. Like, they haven't really opened up their system very much. The Villatrox stuff that is available, they're not working directly with Fujifilm. They're reverse engineering the lens, autofocus, and all that stuff. Zeiss did work directly with Fujifilm, on the other hand, though. So yeah, sometimes it's like a third-party stuff. What you're thinking about, and your thought mentality. Sorry to say, it is a very sort of old-school mentality. And as I say that, I see more gray hairs coming out of your hair and beard. You're right. But yeah, man, it's third-party manufacturers have really stepped up ever since, I want to say like 2012 or 2013. They've had to, because that was a year where like a bunch of tsunamis happened and a whole bunch of lens manufacturing factories folded. So they've had to play along a lot better. So yeah, I mean, like Tamron lenses on Fuji bodies, I've tested them. And the 18-300 works better on the X Pro 3 than it does on the XT4. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think part of it is the autofocus algorithms and the image stabilization working against one another, but you don't have that problem with the XT3, X Pro 3.
Okay.
So they just meld and they work really well. I've got a couple friends that have tried it and will confirm this as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what those, if they, I mean, it says confirmed, but, we'll yet to see until Tamron says it, then, it'll be interesting to see what those extra 2 or 3 lenses for the X mount are going to be like. I'm sure they'll come through your hands anyway, so you'll be able to tell everyone what they're going to be like.
And I'm sorry, there was one other thing that you said that I didn't address. Sorry, do you hear the sound of New York in the background?
No, you're good, but I can imagine the sounds of New York.
Yeah. The aperture ring. The aperture ring is a very good reason why you buy into Fujifilm.
Yes.
The Tamron 18-300 did not have anything like that. If you wanted to adjust the aperture, you had to use the dial on the back of the X Pro 3. It was fine.
Sacrilege, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. One of the reasons why you do it is in order to use the aperture ring, the dials. Like, it just makes a whole lot of sense. Why would you not do it?
Why wouldn't Tamron include that? I don't know if could that be kind of a block from Fuji, or was it kind of the logistics of making the lens made it impossible? I don't know, but
Lord only knows. Honestly,
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, but I feel like if they do something like that, they might do it. Meaning, to clarify, when they make other lenses, I think they might include the aperture ring.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
So I was going through some of the reviews you've done recently, and one that cropped up, done quite some lenses, a couple of lenses. We'll start with the Leica 90 to 280 millimeter f2.8 to f4 SL. God, it takes long to say the names of these lenses, doesn't it? And
Man, that's not even the full name.
Exactly, that's probably a short version. There's a whole hieroglyphic alphabet that usually comes with lenses, not just with Leica, but with all brands. But that's how it is. How was that lens? How was the Leica 90 to 280?
Overall, I think it's a very solid performing lens. Just for, transparency, most of the time we don't get to keep units. This is one I obviously did not get to keep. Leica didn't even have the unit available. So, actually, no. That's unfortunate. Leica had the unit available. It wasn't in a condition that we were happy to review it in, so we sent it back to them, called it in from Lens Rentals. Lens Rentals got to us. Thank you, Lens Rentals, so much. That lens is good in terms of image quality. It's really something special. And that's something that I never thought could really happen with Leica and zoom lenses. Like, they were always known for, like, very good prime lenses. But that lens, it had that really nice Leica pop to it, beautiful colors, all that kind of stuff. It could even do bird photography if you really were careful. And I was testing on the SL2S, which is like 24 megapixels. If I was testing on the SL2, regular SL2, I think that's 45 megapixels if I remember correctly. I'd get a lot more resolution, I could crop in a lot more, and the images would be even sharper. But the autofocus on this thing for humans was great. So for portraiture, fantastic. And sometimes I have to look on like Instagram and Behance to try to figure out how I would test a lens or a camera. Or I go in like Facebook groups and all that stuff. Not many people have this lens, and anyone that has the lens would probably be shooting it for sports or for like portraits or a few landscapes. And that's what I was doing. I was also trying to test it for like animals. So the community garden that I volunteer at, we have a community cat. And I was trying to test it while focusing on the cat. Did a pretty okay job, but there are better systems out there, and Leica doesn't have animal autofocus detection in there. Build quality wise, it's very heavy. It's huge. I think it's like the size of like my forearm, basically. So imagine that on a camera. It'd be huge. It'd be massive. It would be like, let's do this, right?
Yeah.
Massive. Absolutely massive. Heavy. Again, I really didn't understand the target customer of who would actually buy it just because it was so big.
Yeah.
There are things about it that do make it very special. Like, any lens that would possibly compete with that will not have that aperture range of f2.8 to f4. They'd probably try to make it slower, so that way they could make the lens lighter. Or they would just go for like a 70 to 200 and keep it at f2.8 the entire time. Ergonomically speaking, it was heavier than the camera. So, when you're shooting with it, it's really good idea to also hold the tripod mount and like hold it like this and shoot. Overall, it's a good lens. It's just, I don't know who would pay $7,000 for a lens like that. Maybe if you're like a Nat Geo photographer and like going to like the most remote regions of the world because you need that level of durability. But that's a very small market. For the record too, I mean, there are other lenses like it in the L mount Alliance. There's like 70 to 300s and all that stuff. Those are lenses that people would probably go for more. The 90 to 280, it's kind of just in this place where it's like, it's a good lens. In every single way, it's a good lens. But I don't understand who would buy it. I don't understand the customer.
Do you think sometimes manufacturers, not just Leica, do you think they're running out of ideas, so they're just trying to see, hey, what don't we have, and then just fill the space? Like, hey, we don't have a 90 to 280. Would it be better maybe to improve on the 70 to 300 rather than in whatever way they can, rather than just make a brand new lens with it seems as if there's no rhyme and reason for doing so. Do you think they're just running out of ideas?
Yes and no. I applaud innovation at any different space. When you're doing something different, me, Hillary, and Brittany are always very happy. Same with Faraz, who also handles some of our reviews. Because it gets really monotonous to sit there and look at the same 35mm f1.8 or f1.4 lens after a certain while. When you have something that fits a different niche, it's so much better. And Leica, for their zoom lenses, we're trying to do something a little bit different. They're 16 to 35. I don't know why they didn't make it a constant aperture lens. But that is a good one, because other brands have certain lenses like that. Then they have a 24 to 90, which is variable aperture as well, but also a far more useful range than a 24 to 70. It's just, again, it's a very big, heavy lens. Then there's the 90 to 280, which, when you pair them together with the other three zooms, one, your back might break because of all the weight in the backpack, but also you get a very usable range overall. You have 16 to 35, 24 to 90, 90 to 280. It's a very great range that you can do a lot of work with. And I genuinely don't think that they were trying to find a way to... No, let me rephrase that. I do think they were trying to find a way to be different. That's what Leica does. Because it just kind of makes sense. I mean, they have a 24 to 70mm f2.8. The internals of that lens, in terms of the optics, are from Sigma. But the motors and the externals are from Leica. So it's more of like a proper hybrid instead of them just like rebadging a Sigma lens. So I think that brands, if they are going to try to do something that's more traditional, like let's say a 35mm f1.8, find a way to make it different. Canon did a really good job with that recently with their 100mm macro lens. There's this thing that has like chromatic aberration control where like you can control the way the bokeh looks, and no one else has anything like that. So that's fantastic. And then Sony has made focal lengths that no one else has. They have a 14mm f1.8. That's fantastic. It's far lighter than the Sigma variant out there.
Nice.
And then there are brands that have just made different things. Like Nikon made a very small 40mm f2, and it's one of their more non-conventional lenses in their lineup, and it's great. I also gave that an editor's choice because I was like, yeah, finally, Nikon's doing something completely different than anything else out there. So I do think the brands need to try different things, or else it's all just going to get very confusing and they're not going to really stand out. But at the same time, if they're doing something a little bit more traditional, they have to find a way to make it unique.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you raised some good points. It's that they do have to, it can't just, and you're right. I don't think Leica are putting out something different for the sake of it. Then they're trying to be different and appeal maybe to a niche market. But you know, it works. I mean, I'm sure they won't release their sales, but hopefully, you know, it works. You know, I always like to see a manufacturer do well. I'm not, although I shoot Fuji, I always like to see other brands, especially Nikon, because I have a bit of a emotional relationship with them. I like to see brands kind of innovating and doing different things and making things where you're like, oh, I have to buy that. You know, I need to. There's no other option. I just need to go and buy that. I need to go get the credit card, explain it to the husband or wife later, or, you know, the boyfriend or girlfriend or the mother or father, whatever, and just go and drop some cash on that and do it. And I think, you know, it's not often you get gear like that where you're left with no choice but to buy it because it's so good. So it's nice to see that manufacturers are trying to get that out. Another lens that you reviewed was the Canon RF 100 to 400 millimeter. Was that heavy? God, they're giving you some heavy lenses, these manufacturers, aren't they? How's the old bicep doing? Are you getting a good?
That lens is not heavy at all, actually. You would think it would be, but that one is not. That one's packed up, actually. Let me see. They have another version. Let me see if I can get it out. I'm sorry if, you know, some of you are listening to this podcast, but you can check it out on our YouTube. This is, that 100 to 400 is a baby version of this lens. Ugh. They're 100 to 500.
Okay.
And right now it looks very small, but I'm going to put the lens hood on really fast. I adore this lens. And actually, the entire time when I was reviewing the 100 to 400, I was comparing it to this. The 100 to 400 is a very affordable lens. I think it's like, if I remember correctly, like $700 or something like that. This is more innovative in some ways, and it's also bigger, heavier. Okay.
Sorry about that. We just had a little bit of an issue with the camera. The tech world likes to do its own thing and have its own mind, and I have to stay peaceful because I'm presenting the podcast, but really I want to swear and smash things. But we're back now. Chris's beautiful face is with us once again, and I believe you have the Canon 100 to 500?
That's right, yeah.
100 to 500.
Right now, like, it's pretty compact, and then when I do this, it gets much larger. Just for forearm length.
Okay, yeah.
So that's how big it gets.
For those that are listening, the lens is pretty much as big as Chris's forearm. So it's not a tiny little character in the lens world when you eventually get zoom it out. But yeah. So this 100 to 400 was the baby version.
Yes, the far more affordable baby version. Not as fast as an aperture throughout the range. Fast autofocus. Very good image quality, but it did this thing where I don't think that it was as smart. And what do I mean by that? That's something that, you know, that's a term that I've had to come up with in the past couple of years, because manufacturers have started to bring AI into their autofocus algorithms. Canon doesn't actually say that what they use is AI. Okay. But yeah, anyway, so I tested it mostly for animals, because that's what I think people would use this on. So it's photographing birds, photographing the neighborhood cat, all that kind of stuff. And it wouldn't always recognize the birds and the cat as well as when I put the 100 to 500 L lens on there. And I think that either Canon's doing it in camera or they're doing it with the lens. So I tested it on the EOS R5, and that was fairly easy. But when it came to like trying to photograph birds through like leaves and stuff like that, it wouldn't get the birds in focus as well as when I had the 100 to 500 on. And then I tested it on the EOS R, which is their first RF camera, a camera that I love, and I tell people don't sleep on it because it's still a very good camera. And that doesn't have animal face detection or animal autofocus on it at all. So then I would have to use like more manual methods, and that's when it just became annoying. But the thing is that the 100 to 400, because it's so affordable, I would think that like someone would try to use that with a more affordable camera body like the Canon EOS R. But I couldn't sit there and figure out like what camera body that really belonged on. Maybe the RP, but the RP is also weather sealed, and the 100 to 400 is not weather sealed at all. So it was very confusing because that's the other thing. All of Canon's RF camera bodies, the EOS RP, the EOS R, the EOS R6, the EOS R5, and the EOS R3, all of them have stellar weather sealing. But their non-L lenses do not have weather sealing, and this 100 to 400 is one of their non-L lenses. So I don't really know which camera buyer would buy it, because I wouldn't buy an EOS R5 and then buy this lens.
Yeah.
I was talking about that with Hillary. She was saying like, well, a lot of people, they try to get the higher end cameras and then they get like a crappy lens. And then like, I agreed with her, right? I didn't disagree with her, but then I was looking through the buying statistics of what people buy through our affiliate links on our website. And people are going for higher end lenses and lower end camera bodies, which is what people have done like years ago. Like back in the DSLR days, you would buy a Canon Rebel and you'd buy like a crappy like 50mm f1.8 lens. And then you would save up for L glass, and then you would buy like a Canon 5D or a 1D or something like that instead.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what people are doing too. Like, we have people that bought EOS R5s, and we have people that bought EOS RPs, and then we have people that bought EOS R6s, EOS Rs as well too. But believe it or not, we sold more Canon lenses, and we sold more high-end Canon L glass. So, again, with that said, I don't know who would buy this lens. Maybe someone that wants something a little bit more affordable, but then you're sacrificing weather sealing. And if you're doing that, you might as well save up and just go for the 100 to 500 or try to find it used or something like that. I don't know, man. Sometimes lenses confuse all of us.
Yeah.
Like, for example, with Sigma, for example, there are Sigma lenses that they say they're weather sealed at just the mount. And you put them on a weather sealed camera, and it's like, okay, but debris and rain and all that stuff can get in through the other parts of the lens. Why would I get this? I don't know, man. It's confusing at times. And that's also me saying, I'm sorry, really quickly, that's also me saying I feel like Canon should create more weather-sealed products that aren't L. Because Nikon does that, Sony does that, Fuji does that.
Do you think
the rest of the industry does that. Sorry.
Do you think the reason they don't do that is because they want to? I guess the L mount lenses, they're their most expensive lenses. If they kind of remove certain aspects of those lenses, i.e. weather sealing, and put them on more kind of mid-range budget friendly lenses, then it kind of takes away the appeal of splashing out more cash on their premium gear.
I think that is part of it. But Canon could try different things, like, innovating harder on the higher end, making them stand out. And just for clarity, the entire thing is Canon RF mount. When I say L lenses, that's like their highest end ones. That's the series name. So Canon L lens for RF. Yeah, I think that they're trying to like just pigeonhole it to make it like a premium feature, and I don't really think it's good for their system in the long run.
Interesting. In terms of, so those are two lenses that you've had reviewed. That both reviews are on the Phoblographer.com. I'll put a couple of links down in the description anyway. So if you want to go read those reviews, then do. Have you got any? Because I know obviously we've got Hillary and we've got Brittany who are also testing gear. But you yourself, have you got anything that you're playing with at the moment that you've not yet, that you are about to review, that you can share?
Yeah. So a couple things that I have to write. they're a little bit more boring. They're not as glitzy and glamorous as like a camera or something like that. But I'm reviewing a couple of camera straps.
Okay.
It's going to take too long for me to try to find it right now.
That's
but
fine.
there's one for this brand called Langley that's... I'm sorry, wait, no, I can pull it out really quickly. Hold on. Yeah, so I'm back. Hi.
Nice and quick. That's great. You didn't lie.
This is a strap from a brand called Langley. It is called it's a leather. Yeah, they call it the Langley leather strap. And it's like a softer leather. There's like a suede padded thing inside, and then there are like these buckles.
Oh.
Yeah. So it could connect to the camera, and then like you could do whatever. It's comfortable. It's not very adjustable, so that's something I don't really like. I do this thing too, where I've shown this off before. Like I will sit there to turn a camera strap into a wrist strap. You do this, right? You have. Let me move back so you can see. Okay. You go 1, 2, and 3. And then you kind of wiggle your fingers in between. When you do this, it's taking up so much real estate space, and it's not totally comfortable.
I've got tiny forearms, Chris. I can't be wrapping long straps around these little tiny forearms.
Yeah, exactly. That's a you problem, but yeah. So I'm testing this. It's very comfortable. I have to test it out in hot weather, and New York does this thing where it likes to do all 4 seasons in 1 week. So I'm going to be doing that a little bit more. It's nice. It's not one of the nicest camera straps I've used. It's also not one of the most expensive camera straps I've used. So I'm working on that. There's another strap I'm working on. There's a ProGrade Digital CF Express A card I'm working on. There's a light that I got in for review that I was trying to actually get set up for the show, and it doesn't work.
Oh dear.
So I have to email the manufacturer about that, and that stuff like that happens, right? We finished pretty much all of our lenses. I'm looking at what else I'm reviewing. I'm waiting for a lot of units right now, and I'm letting Hillary and Brittany handle most of the units. Yeah. So
Hillary was meant to join us on today's show, just for those listening, because you'll have seen in past episodes Brittany's been on, obviously Chris has been on, but unfortunately Hillary is a little bit under the weather because of the weather. Actually, it's the weather that's putting her under the weather. It's snowing, and so she wasn't able to join us. But with that camera strap, I guess I think feel and look is very important. But I guess one question is, did you feel your camera was safe?
That's a great question. Yes, I did. However, the buckles kind of concern me.
Okay.
Because there probably might be a situation where you've got the camera strap on, right? Some people might wear it like this. I wear it like this, crossbody.
Crossbody, yeah.
There might be some sort of situation where, I don't know, let's say I'm using a heavier lens, where this might happen. Accidentally.
Yeah. For those
This
listening,
comes apart
there's a connection which may, just saying for those listening and not watching, there's a connection that may come loose and, the camera could fall to a terrible death, which we wouldn't want.
It's kind of like a backpack buckle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a way, just like standard like teeth goes together like that.
Yeah.
And then bam. That's a concern for me, just because I don't feel like this is that secure, and there's no extra layer of like security at all. If there were something where like I had to twist this and then take it apart, I'd be like, okay, fine. But that's not the case right now. So I have to test this with a heavier lens on there, and then just be very careful. So yeah, I personally speaking, I don't feel it's the most secure.
Okay.
just because I feel that way, I could be wrong. And that's what I always have to really address in my reviews. I might say that, like, this feels a little weird, but in reality, I didn't really have any problems. So I guess it's okay.
And I think as well, it's your job to be over analytical and look at the possible if, buts, and maybes in terms of scenarios, because we like to give the readers a broad perspective. But you're right, yeah. For someone, say like me, who's not testing it, I may walk around with it and not have any issues. But it's always important as a trusted review site that we share the potential issues that may come. Because we don't want people getting the strap and be like, my camera fell off and you didn't ever mention that could happen, and coming after us, even though it's not our fault, we didn't make it. But yeah, we have to be broad in what we say. So it's December, and I don't know about you, but I like to reflect every year, personally, professionally, things like that. So I'm going to ask you to do the same professionally, and just if we reflect on 2021 as a year for the Phoblographer, as the founder and editor in chief, how do you feel about this year for the site and the publication?
I think we did the best that we possibly could in the current climate situation. Let's see. We built an app that we've been working on for a very long time. The app is beautiful. You can download it on iPadOS, iOS, and Android. There are a couple bugs. We're fixing them. Not a problem. There's a membership program coming where you're going to get a lot of goodies. I'm working on that actively. So look out for that. And it's going to be on the app. You'll also get no banner ads when you activate the membership, which is going to be pretty good. But the app itself also has less banner ads. We have ads on the site, on like the mobile site and desktop site, but I have to pay people ethically. You would want to get paid ethically, wouldn't you? So
I do.
Yeah, exactly.
I do, and I hope people watching do, and hope that we do as well. Does that bother you? Sorry to interject, but it is a thing that a lot of websites, a lot of readers complain, not just about our website. Lots of websites on the internet, ads. They seem to have a problem with it. And how does that bother you, or are you used to it now?
Which part? People being bothered, or ads?
No, just them complaining about ads on a site. It's something that people say, oh, why do you have ads on your website? And we seem to constantly have to justify why we do it, and I'm sure other websites do as well. In the whole of the internet space, like does it bother you when people have that complaint?
No, because of the fact that I understand that most people are incredibly selfish, to be very completely flat out honest. People want what they want, and they don't care or see the humanity behind a website. They sit there and they're just like, oh, well, why aren't you giving me what I want? And I'm like, well, we are giving you what you want, but like in order for us to actually keep giving you what you want, we have to be able to get advertising in there. Would you rather pay a fee for us per month? Some people have said yes in the past couple of years. And those are the folks I'm literally building the app for, because there's enough of those people there for it. But other people have been like, oh, no, I can get your content everywhere else. So you've been with us for a couple of years, man. You've known that like we've evolved. And if you look at our front page, it's completely different than anyone else's. Completely.
Yeah, I'll just point out it's 4 years in January that I've been with the Phoblographer.
Yeah, so there you go.
4 years.
Congratulations.
That's why the grey hairs are here. That's why the grey hairs that you mentioned are here.
I would hope that I don't stress you guys out that much.
No. That's just a joke.
I know. But those people, like, sometimes I have to sit there and I have to explain to them the reasons why we do that. And usually, 99% of the time, they're like, well, okay, I'm all right with that. And I'll keep that in mind. And then other times they're like, well, I'm okay with people getting paid, but like, why do you have to serve me so many ads? I'm like, well, we pay ethical wages. Like, it's far different. Like, Brittany came from a place that didn't pay very ethically, for example. There are a whole bunch of other websites out there that do not pay very ethically, but I pay very ethically, and in some ways even over standard rates, because I believe in the team. So why the hell would I not do it? Yeah, I don't see a reason for me to sit there and tell people to justify like why we have the ads, because if they're using an ad blocker, usually they can't get through to the website anyway. And we make people disable ad blocker. The other thing is that like they're gonna want to come back to our site anyway. So if they sit there and they get annoyed by the ads, they're gonna come back in maybe 3 months or something like that, because we have content that people will care about.
Yeah.
So they'll come back. I don't really care.
I kind of took you on a tangent there, so I'll bring it back in terms. Yeah, I did, and
Sorry.
it's my fault. But I just wanted to kind of because I think having a conversation about it is much more real than say replying to a comment or an email, which we tend not to do in terms of those that complain about ads. But I think it's good for anybody watching, listening, just to see it's not kind of a big money grab. You know, there's reasons to do it, and it's why we've been going 12 years now. So you know, it's just something to bear in mind. But going back to the reflection, so yes, the app, wonderful thing. I now only exclusively read the Phoblographer on the app rather than the site, because I love using the app so much.
It's so much nicer.
It's great. So if you're on iOS, iPadOS, Android, like you said, go and download it and check it out, because I'm certain you'll enjoy reading the content just as much or even more. But in terms of more reflection, the app, what else has been good or not so good for the Phoblographer in 2021?
We had an insurance program that we were building for photographers, and in the end, it didn't work out, unfortunately. So I was calling it the Photography Care Plan. I'm not going to get too much into what happened. I will say it wasn't our fault. But I will also say that we're building something better right now. Something is being worked on. I want to ensure that photographers and their gear are covered, and it's an idea that I had for a really long time. Like, warranties don't necessarily cover your product if they say that, like, there's weather sealing or weather resistance or something like that. So, you know, if you're buying the warranty and the manufacturer is not going to cover the product, what insurance do you have? So I'm trying to build insurance for photographers, not only for their gear, but also their business. And I'm trying to work on a solution that's worldwide, not just in the US. But slowly but surely it's coming. I'm going to try to get it done by the end of next quarter. What else have we done? We've grown a lot on Flipboard. We are the largest photo publication on Flipboard. We had the Yahoo syndication plan, which was very hard to get, but we got it. What else did we do? Solidified staff. I like our crew right now. I think everyone that's on is doing a great job. You know, you run 2 people that are under you. I have 2 people that are under me, and we still have Mark that's around, who's our copy editor. I think we all work in very good cohesion and harmony and all that stuff. I think also a very big thing is trying to ensure that your publication stays relevant, and it just keeps growing, and that's what we're doing as well too. We're doing well on affiliate sales, which I'm very happy about. What other big things? Man, sometimes we get accomplishments, and I'm just like, oh well, I forgot we did that. So.
I mean, you've already named quite a few, to be fair. I think, you know, in 1 year, especially a year where, you know, things are difficult for everyone in the world, as it was last year. 2020, 2021 has not, you know, it's a difficult time for everyone. So I think, you know, the app, the syndications, the growth on Flipboard, you know, it has been a good year. And, you know, from my perspective personally, being the arts and culture editor of the Phoblographer, working with Feroz and Ellen has been a wonderful experience for me. You know, they're 2 fantastic writers that are doing kind of great work in their own kind of way and have their own kind of voice. And, you know, as much as we are a gear site and a review site, that's always been the foundation and the backbone of what we do. You know, I also, you know, love the creative and the art side that we bring, and I think, you know, I guess we're blowing our own trumpet a little bit here, but I think there's always I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think everyone, photographers and everyone alike, should have a time to reflect on their wins. You know, it's not a case of not being modest, but yeah, I think we've done a great job of being different and not putting out, you know, content that everyone else is putting out, and just feeling like a content stream rather than a creative space for people to come and actually connect to a story. So yeah, I think it's been a great year.
I agree with you. And also, something that your team did this year really taught me something. Years ago, because of the way Google algorithms were working and Flipboard and Facebook and all that stuff, the art section actually used to bring in most of the traffic. And by that, I mean like new posts, not like stuff that we, you know, reshare on Flipboard or something like that. And 9/11 this year, when Faraz did that one story interviewing David Handschuh, through the Yahoo syndication, we saw it bring in insane amount of page views.
Ridiculous.
And I was sitting there and I was processing that for weeks, right? Because it brought in a lot of page views for Yahoo, didn't bring in a whole lot for Phoblographer. And it made me think that the content that we do, you know, on Phoblographer itself, like we have people that are like really hardcore into photography and like gear and all that stuff. But we have the potential to reach a much larger audience that really just cares about good photography. It's just for some odd reason there is some blockage that prevents us from doing that. And I don't know what it is. And one of my goals for the next year is to actually figure out and solve what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm turning 35 next year, and like there's this whole thing where like apparently when you turn 35 you're supposed to mentally peak. So
Okay.
I want to find, pardon?
I was just saying, okay, does that mean it's all downhill from there, or?
Theoretically, yes.
Oh,
Which is
no.
sad, but like that's what I've read. I'm like, okay, like I've read it in a couple of different texts. And like I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do to really make this special? So I have the whole plan of like how I want to grow Phoblographer in the next year, and part of that is trying to find ways to reach more of a mass audience, without being too clickbaity and without giving up on our ideals.
Mhm.
And I think, if anything that the Yahoo syndication has taught me, it's that we have that potential, and we can absolutely do it. We just have to find another avenue that helps us get it.
Yeah, and I think we'll find that avenue, and I think, you know, it always feels better when you're right, when the publication doesn't have to sell itself out to get people in, you know, and for Oz's piece, you know, was evidence of that. That was just a great article for a very meaningful and important time for everyone in the world, not just Americans, you know, although New Yorkers and Americans were most impacted by 9/11. It was a global kind of like, whoa, what's going on now, you know? So when you see something like that do great numbers, it's it's rewarding, and I look forward to seeing more of that in 2022.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not just for us as well, too. I mean, Ellen's also done really great work.
Excellent work.
With a lot of the stuff that she does with, like, dogs and, like, featuring animals and all that stuff. So, again, we have that potential. It's just we have to find a way to actually reach that audience more.
One thing I like about Ellen's work as well is because she does cover a lot of, you know, that she covers the fun stuff, but she's also got a deep kind of connection to the issues in the world and photographers that go over those issues and document them. And I know a lot of people sometimes feel that, you know, topics like climate change or politics or gender is not always the most joyous read, and I understand that, but Ellen's got a great way of making it I don't want to say a fun read because I don't want to minimize how important the topics are, but in a way, yeah, it's a fun read. Sometimes I'm like, I enjoyed reading that, and I also learned something. So to anyone that does visit the site and maybe scrolls past, topics of climate change and things like that, then I encourage you not to do that and have a click on Ellen's pieces, because you'll learn something, but you'll also have a joyous time reading her words, because she's an exceptional writer, and it's been an absolute joy working with her the past 12 months, I think it's been almost.
She's almost a year. In addition to what you're saying, I will also tell everyone to check their privilege. Because you might not want to hear certain things, but a lot of what is being said is her and our writer sitting there trying to shake you and make you realize and wake up. Yeah.
And of course,
hell, I just said, New York experiences all 4 seasons in a week. Like, come on. Come on.
Chris, it's been a pleasure having you on the show again. It's always fun because we can be silly, a little bit more silly than maybe with some of my other guests who maybe don't understand the camaraderie. But and it's also great to talk about gear, especially for me. I don't necessarily get deep into the gear side of things, but I do have an interest in it, so I always learn something. I will give you the opportunity if there's anything else you want to say before you leave our lovely listeners and watchers. Then the floor is yours.
Nothing really else, except that, we're turning 12. We're going to be having a logo change soon as well, too. Probably a couple more expansions of the staff. I don't really know. Trying to figure a couple things out as well, too. But Phoblographer is going to keep going, and you can continue to expect bigger and better things from us. So,
sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I interjected there. Just smack my hand. I got excited at the turning 12, you see, Chris, and I was like, if I get a flight to New York, does that mean I can have a bottomless pit of spirits again, like I did when we turned 10?
Not quite yet, no.
I think I asked one of the reps to marry me at that party, which was probably...
I do remember that, yeah. I do remember that.
Okay, Chris. Well, thanks so much to everybody who's watching. I'm going to put links down to the gear that we've mentioned and to the reviews that we've talked about. So if you want to check those out, please do. I encourage you to do so. Again, just one more plug of the app. If you're on iPadOS, iOS, or Android, do download the app. It's going to be well worth your time. It takes 10 seconds to get it onto your device, and then you can get access to all the content and see what we're doing with that. But yeah, Chris, thank you so much. I will love you and leave you, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well, bro. I love you too. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Chris. Well, thanks again to Chris Gampat for chatting with me for the past hour or so. If you're interested in any of the gear that we discussed, then we've got links to where you can buy it down in the description below if you're listening on YouTube. Go and check it out. Treat yourself. It's the holidays. Why not? Guys, please do remember, whether you're listening on YouTube, Google, Spotify, Apple, do subscribe, share the podcast, hit a like and leave a comment. Your feedback is really appreciated. We'll be back again next week with another episode of the Phoblographer's Inside the Photographer's Mind. Until then, have a great week. See ya.